In the beginning of the episode we see, the man introduces himself as their exam proctor, Franz Bauer, and explains that in the first round of the examination, they will fight until only 5 are left standing. They can use magic, weapons, or any method they like to knock their rivals out of the field. Without any further explanation, the examination begins, and 50 examinees step into the ring, including Eftel and Anastasia. Franz watches everything from above, knowing that for a B-rank adventurer like him, there's no easier job than being an exam proctor. After all, he gets paid just to watch a bunch of kids. Even though he does this every year, he never sees anyone impressive. Franz notices that Eftel and Anastasia are already surrounded, which doesn't surprise him, since the standard move in a battle royale is to knock out the weakest ones first. He already figured that would be the case, but all his expectations are thrown out the window when one of the examinees is suddenly launched into the sky. Before he can even figure out what's going on, 9 more examinees are sent flying out of the field and are immediately disqualified. Soon, Franz realizes that Eftel strengthened his legs and kicked them out himself, which means he can use some degree of physical enhancement magic. He knows it won't be that easy, though, because another thing about battle royales is that everyone teams up to take down the strongest ones. Just like that, several examinees charge at them all at once, but Anastasia reacts quickly and recites an incantation to cast a level 3 spell called Sylphie's Kiss. That single spell knocks out 16 examinees, leaving only 16 people in the field. The crowd immediately starts wondering who Anastasia is, because she used a spell that an exam student shouldn't be able to cast. Anastasia gets really nervous when she hears everyone whispering about her, so she asks Eftel if she went too far. Eftel reassures her and says that she really does have talent, just as he thought. However, he also points out that she apparently can't cast spells without an incantation. Everyone is confused after hearing that comment, and Franz can't help laughing, saying that this kid doesn't even know the basics of magic. Anastasia nervously tells Eftel that, of course, you need an incantation to cast a spell. It's something everyone knows. However, Eftel assures her that's not true, because if they rely on incantations, they won't be able to do a lot of things. To show her, he decides to cast a level 4 spell called Sylphie's Leap, but Franz is shocked to see that he's casting 4. Eftel is casting 4 simultaneous level 4 spells using parallel activation. The spell not only sends every examinee in the field flying, but it also destroys a large part of the building. Anastasia is shocked that he was able to do it without an incantation, while the people in the crowd are even more surprised that he could cast a level 4 spell at all. Having no other choice, Franz tells Eftel and Anastasia that they passed the first test, even though he can hardly believe it himself. The next stage is the written exam. Since Eftel mastered the study of magic in his previous life, the questions are easy for him, though he admits there are a lot of them. Once time is up, Eftel is just glad it's over because there were so many questions, but he still managed to finish every one of them. Anastasia is surprised to hear that he answered them all, but Eftel doesn't understand why she's so confused. After all, he assumes they're supposed to answer every question to pass the exam. However, Anastasia explains that they're only expected to answer the questions related to their strongest field of magic. That surprises Eftel, but the Academy staff is even more shocked when they discover his score of 958 because they've never seen a score like that before. Nothing like it has ever happened in the Academy's history, so some of them begin wondering who he really is, even suspecting that he might have cheated. One of the examiners tells the staff that the student is examinee number 588, and that his name is Eftel Orchid, who, strangely enough, has the same name as the legendary Lightning Emperor. An elderly staff member comments that the boy's parents must be incredibly bold to give him that name because, to those who follow the path of magic, it's almost blasphemous. He seriously starts considering the possibility that Eftel cheated, but then Franz barges into the room and tells everyone what happened during the first exam. The staff is stunned to learn that Eftel performed parallel activation with a level 4 spell because most people can't even use a level 4 spell until graduate school. On top of that, they're certain that not a single member of the Academy's faculty is capable of performing parallel activation. Franz explains that, given Eftel's abilities, his score on the written exam was probably earned fairly. With no way to argue against that, the old man begins to wonder if Eftel might actually be the second coming of the Lightning Emperor. Some time later, many examinees gather outside to check the exam results. Since the crowd is so large, Eftel and Anastasia decide to split up and look for their names. Anastasia finds her number first and excitedly hugs Eftel, saying that she made it into the special class and that it's all thanks to him. When she notices that some people are looking at them, she immediately pulls away from him and apologizes, feeling really embarrassed. Eftel reassures her and congratulates her on passing, saying that now she'll be able to live the life of an ordinary student. Anastasia happily thanks him, and Eftel decides to find his own number to check his results. However, he soon realizes that his number isn't even on the list for some reason. Anastasia is completely confused because there's no way he could have failed the test. Eftel agrees, knowing it doesn't make any sense, especially since he's sure he did well. He wonders if they secretly conducted a magical aptitude test at some point, and that's why he failed, because otherwise, there would be no explanation. Anastasia refuses to accept the result, so she tells him she's going to file a complaint right away. Before she can leave, Eftel quickly stops her and asks her not to, saying that she'll only end up making him even more embarrassed. Anastasia suddenly stops, but only because she notices a plaque that says Eftel has qualified as a special elite student. That alone is incredibly impressive because it means he was singled out specifically. Eftel is relieved that he passed, but he has no idea what being a special elite student representative actually means, so he has no clue what they're going to make him do. Anastasia later explains that the title of Special Elite Student Representative is apparently something truly amazing. After all, he gets free tuition, free housing, free meals, and even a special cash stipend on top of that. Eftel looks over the information she brought him and discovers that he'll also represent the school in PR activities and take part in events with other schools. He admits that it sounds amazing, but he's not completely convinced because it feels more like being the school's mascot than an actual student, and that's not what he wanted at all. His goal was to quietly use the school library and other facilities without attracting attention while trying to find a breakthrough regarding magical aptitude. That was the school life he had envisioned, but now that he's been chosen as a student representative, he doesn't think he has the option of saying no. As Eftel walks through the academy halls with Anastasia, he keeps thinking about all of this. Suddenly, he ducks behind a pillar the moment his eyes land on Merlin for the first time since arriving at the academy. Anastasia is confused by his sudden reaction, but Eftel takes another look and immediately confirms that the woman is Merlin without a doubt. She has grown up over the past 400 years, but he can still tell it's her. Though he doesn't know what she's doing here. He's young now, but he still looks the same as he did back then, and Merlin knew him well enough in his previous life that she'd recognize him immediately. With that in mind, he knows he can't let her see him. If people find out that he's the reincarnation of Eftel, things will get bad very quickly. So, he quickly makes up an excuse and tells Anastasia that he wants to look around the school a little more. Even though he tries to slip away unnoticed, Merlin instantly senses the presence of her master. But by the time she turns around, Eftel is already gone without a trace. She tries to convince herself that it was just her imagination because there's no way he could actually be here. However, when she spots Eftel walking away with Anastasia, she immediately chases after him, determined to find out who he is. Merlin catches up to him in no time, leaving Eftel with no way to escape. Without wasting any time, she asks him directly if he's related to the Lightning Emperor. Hearing that, Eftel realizes Merlin really did sense something. But now that he's finally a student at this academy, he doesn't want the situation to get out of hand and risk losing his place. So, he pretends not to understand and simply tells her that he has no idea what she's talking about. Then he turns to Anastasia, says he's hungry, and immediately runs off before Merlin can say anything else. During lunch, Eftel is surprised to learn that Anastasia didn't recognize Merlin at all. She even asks him if Merlin is really her distant relative. After all, she's never met her before because Merlin is the daughter of the Demon King. Anastasia explains that her relatives told her the head of their clan 10 generations ago was the Demon King, which means they're only very distantly related. Eftel is surprised to hear that, but he quickly understands. If they're that distantly related, then it makes sense that Anastasia wouldn't know her. It also explains why Anastasia doesn't look much like Merlin. However, he still can't figure out why Merlin is here, since she's supposed to be running Altina Magic Academy, while this is Crone Magic Academy. Some time later, during the school's entrance ceremony, the headmaster welcomes all the new students to the prestigious Crone Magic Academy and tells them that, starting today, they are part of this house of learning. He says he hopes the students in the special class, and those who are even more exceptional, will interact with students from the other classes and walk the path of magic together. The headmaster then announces that today's special guest is someone from another species entirely, the headmistress of Altina Magic Academy, Merlin. Now Ethel finally understands why she's here, and Merlin thanks the headmaster for the introduction. She tells the students that, as a fellow traveler on the path of magic, she wants to congratulate them on successfully entering the academy because they've overcome countless trials in their efforts to improve themselves. Ethel listens to her speech, relieved that she isn't a teacher at the academy. Still, he knows he needs to do something soon, maybe after the ceremony, before things get out of hand. Unfortunately for him, the headmaster then announces that the student representative will give a speech and introduces him as the special elite student, Ethel Orcutt. Merlin is surprised when she hears that name, and Ethel immediately realizes just how bad the situation is. Still, he has no choice but to walk onto the stage and give a speech he never had the chance to prepare. Now that she knows his name, he's certain she'll figure everything out, because everyone knows the name of the Lightning Emperor. The other students also begin talking about him, recognizing him as the student who earned the highest written test score ever, and the one who blasted so many people out of the ring during the first exam. Ethel can only hope Merlin doesn't overhear them, but the angry look on her face tells him otherwise. After the ceremony, a crowd of girls surrounds him, saying they think it's amazing that he's a special elite student. They bombard him with questions, asking where he was born and whether he has a girlfriend. Ethel barely pays attention to them as he desperately tries to figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, Anastasia stays a short distance away, clearly unhappy with all the attention he's getting because she found him first. To make matters even worse, Merlin suddenly walks into the room and slams a stack of papers onto the table, obviously furious. The girls surrounding Ethel quickly scatter, intimidated by her presence, while the other students can only watch in confusion, wondering what's happening. Merlin tells him that she's learned quite a bit about him, so she already knows his name is Ethel. Ethel nervously confirms it, realizing that Merlin has become much sharper-tongued than she used to be. She sits down across from him, still wearing an angry expression, and asks if he's familiar with the concept of reincarnation. Her direct question catches Ethel off guard, although he knows she's always been clever enough to figure things out. Even so, he continues pretending not to understand and asks her what she's talking about. Merlin explains that she looked over his exam results, and he had a score. Or as if he were one of the 4 emperors who decided to enroll in the academy just for fun. Most of the staff could tell that his answers were correct, but they couldn't understand the method he used to solve the questions. That's because his answers were based on magical theories from 400 years ago. Merlin asks him how he can explain something like that, but even Ethel doesn't know what to say because he never thought about it. The questions were so simple that the 400-year gap never even crossed his mind. Merlin then says, with a nostalgic smile, that he's just like someone who was very important to her, catching Ethel completely by surprise. She quickly apologizes and explains that whenever her master is involved, she gets a little emotional. Merlin tells him that even if reincarnation sounds impossible, he must still have some special connection to Ethel, one of the legendary 4 emperors. She assumes he ran away from her because of that connection and simply didn't want to speak with her, or at least that's what she believes. Ethel wishes he could just tell her the truth, that he really is the reincarnation of Ethel, because it would make everything so much easier. However, the students around them are already starting to grow suspicious, wondering if he's some kind of demon. Since all Ethel wants is to study magic in peace, he decides to make up a story instead. He tells Merlin that the Lightning Emperor once had a lover. If she needs an explanation, he'll simply give her one. Merlin is clearly shocked at first, but Ethel continues the story. He says the Lightning Emperor secretly fell in love with a woman, and the child she gave birth to was hidden from the world. The boy possessed incredible magical talent, so the Lightning Emperor personally taught him everything he knew. He was raised in a secluded village, far from prying eyes, where he spent his entire life training in magic alone. Merlin suddenly grabs him by the collar and sharply tells him that something like that is impossible because she was never told about any of it. Ethel then mentions that the Lightning Emperor died in despair after discovering he had no magical aptitude, but Merlin immediately cuts him off and warns him that this has been kept hidden from the public. If that truth became widely known, it would tarnish the reputation of the four emperors, so he shouldn't say things like that where other people can hear. Some of the students nearby have already become curious about their conversation, while Eftel struggles just to breathe with Merlin gripping his collar. She finally lets go, admitting that if he knows such a closely guarded secret, then maybe what he's saying really is true. Eftel nods and introduces himself as Eftel Orcott 13, adding that the public doesn't know about his existence. He knows that everything he just said is a lie, so he apologizes to Merlin in his mind, hoping she'll accept the story. Merlin thinks about it for a moment and finally believes him, though she admits she feels a little sad that she was never told something so important. Eftel is relieved that she accepted his explanation, but to his surprise, Merlin tells him that she wants to find out which of them is the real thing. She explains that his clan isn't the only one following the path the legendary Lightning Emperor laid out and striving to become stronger. He's also not the only one who has continued practicing magic. At that moment, Eftel realizes that Merlin has spent the last 400 years continuing to train her magic ever since that day, which means she's far stronger now than she used to be. Merlin asks if he'll be participating in this afternoon's mock battles as the special student representative. When Eftel confirms that he will, she challenges him to compare his magic with hers during the mock battles. Eftel is shocked by the proposal at first. He knows that if he agrees to something like that, he'll definitely stand out, and his peaceful school life will be over. Of course, he could simply refuse. However, to everyone's surprise, Eftel accepts her challenge without any hesitation. After all, seeing the determination in Merlin's eyes makes him realize that, more than anything else, he wants to see what she has accomplished over the past 400 years. That's it for today. Like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.